What's the pettiest reason someone ever got you fired? My coworker got me fired for accusing her of having an affair with a married ER charge nurse. I was seated in the HR office, and so was Jenny. I'd hoped that the news I'd discovered had reached HR and she was ready to discipline the people involved. But I was so wrong. I was new at the hospital and hadn't even passed the probation stage. But I knew the ER charge nurse, Mr. Johnson. He seemed like a nice guy, and he had an equally great wife who would bring him lunch at work almost every day. But about 2 days earlier, I had just finished my shift at the hospital and was headed home when I passed by and saw Jenny and him having a conversation in a corner. Jenny was a social worker at the hospital. They were holding hands, and then I heard Jenny say she wanted a large steak for dinner, and they both chuckled. I thought I was just imagining things until they hugged tightly for a while. I looked around to see if anyone else found it weird, but no one really cared. The next day when I went to work, I noticed they were still acting close, so I started talking about it with my other coworkers, and all they told me was that it was how they usually acted. So that day in the HR office, I knew what I was called in for. Someone had whispered to Jenny, and she had reported me, but I wasn't scared because I knew what I saw. Mr. Johnson was called in too, and when he came in, he looked at Jenny, then me, then the HR before taking a seat. When the HR asked me what had happened, I told her everything I saw and what I thought about it. But all the while, Mr. Johnson had this confused expression on his face, like he didn't know what I was talking about, but he didn't say anything. When I was done, the HR told Jenny and Mr. Johnson to leave while I stayed, so I was confused. As they left, I turned to the HR for answers. She leaned back in her chair and sighed while looking at the ceiling. Then she asked me how long I'd been at the hospital. I said a few weeks ago. Then she asked me what made me think I knew enough to go around saying disgusting stuff about people. I was confused at that point. And that's when she told me that Jenny and Mr. Johnson were father and daughter, and that everyone knew that. I almost couldn't believe it. It didn't make sense, because if everyone knew, why didn't they tell me when I kept talking about it? But then I realized that they may have been talking about actual dinner that day and nothing else, but it was too late. As I walked out of the HR's office, thinking about what I had just done and what the consequences could be, I saw Jenny and her dad talking a distance away. I didn't know whether to apologize or just go the opposite direction because I was so embarrassed, but that's not the worst part. The next day I went to work, but I didn't stay long. Everyone was staring at me weirdly. I wasn't surprised. News spread fast. But before I could even check in, I was called into the HR office again. But this time, it wasn't to have a conversation. Turned out she'd already had one with the unit manager, and I'd been fired.